Tonight, the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation and the government remain at odds ahead of the contract vote. The STF calls it a final offer. The province calls it a tentative agreement. Also, how these two became friends in Saskatoon and are now working to fight a global health threat in Sri Lanka. Plus, turning trash into fashion.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, April 18th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for watching. Saskatchewan teachers will vote in May on a proposed contract, months into a dispute with the province. And while the teachers' union has been unhappy with the negotiations so far, it says it won't take a stance on the offer. Dane Patterson has more.
After months of this, there could finally be an end in sight. The Saskatchewan Teachers Federation is bringing a contract proposal to thousands of teachers in the province. Here's what's in it: a 3-year contract with a 3% salary increase in both of the first 2 years and a 2% increase in the third year. And despite being critical of the province's negotiation strategy, the union president is staying neutral.
We deal in facts at the STF, and we will be presenting those facts to members and allowing them the opportunity to weigh the benefits and the consequences or potential risks of voting in favor or voting against and come to an informed decision on their own.
The offer also includes an article about the provincial funding agreement with the Saskatchewan School Boards Association. It says it will honor the accountability framework to ensure that money directly benefits students. But it took a while to get here. Since beginning negotiations in May, thousands of teachers have taken to job action, picketing on the streets and refusing extracurricular activities. Students protesting alongside teachers and out of anger for missed trips and tournaments.
I think there's some good things in this agreement that are good for teachers, are good for the province. At the end of the day, good for students to ensure that we don't have sanctions going forward that affect obviously curricular time, but all the extracurriculars.
Teachers will vote whether to ratify the agreement on May 8th and 9th. While BCOT has used the term final offer, Cockrell says it's not the final offer. Unlike other bargaining, this offer does not force a vote.
You have to remember that the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation doesn't fall under the Saskatchewan Employment Act, and there's not a similar provision around forcing a vote around a final offer in either the Education Act or the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation Act.
Both BCOT and Cockrell were hesitant to speculate about what happens if the deal isn't ratified, but it's possible if teachers don't vote in favor, that job action could continue as the end of the school year nears. Dane Patterson, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Mr. Speaker, I have colleagues on this side of this House who have lost children, Mr. Speaker. That is incredibly difficult for a parent to go through, something no parent should have to go through in this province. I did apologize to Ms. Thomas. It was a poor choice of words on my part. And Mr. Speaker, I apologize for that.
That's Education Minister Jeremy Cockrell apologizing today, both in the Assembly as well as afterwards in front of reporters. The apology comes after making comments during a meeting he had this week with a mother who lost her daughter. Taya Thomas met with reporters today. She was at the legislature earlier this week to raise concerns about supports for students in schools. Her oldest daughter, Mayel, died, and before that, she required intensive in-school support. It was a comment made by Cockrell that Thomas couldn't believe.
That was a really poor choice of words on my part, and I apologized for that, and I'm human. I made a mistake. It was a really poor choice of words on my part.
So I sat down at the table with him and I said, what do we need to do to come to an agreement with the teachers? And he said, every time we say something that they don't like, they get up from the table and they leave. And then he said, and I quote, what do they want me to do? Give up my firstborn child? And I mean, obviously my jaw dropped at that.
Thomas and Cockrell disagreed on whether Cockrell apologized in the meeting. He did apologize, as I said, in the Assembly today to Thomas. This week's federal budget was all about affordability and housing, including nearly $53 billion in new spending. Saskatchewan's premier isn't happy about it, largely because of the carbon tax. Today, the federal Minister of Energy and Natural Resources was asked about the impact of Saskatchewan's refusal to remit the carbon tax.
We have a number of options, and some of those options would involve reducing the size of the rebate. Some of them would involve simply going after the government, which has made the decision to not remit the price. It's not the people in Saskatchewan who actually made that decision. It's Scott Moe and his government. So we are trying to be thoughtful about how to actually address this. But obviously, the federal government can't simply stand by and watch provinces decide to pick and choose which laws they're going to abide by.
Wilkinson says there will be consequences for not remitting carbon tax. He says the CRA comes after people who don't pay their taxes. He expects the same could happen in the case of a province willingly breaking the law. A library employee was assaulted by two teen girls on Monday night. That's according to Saskatoon police. The union representing library workers says violence is becoming more common. It happened here at the Carlisle King branch in the Massey Place neighborhood. Police say they believe the teens were intoxicated at the time. The union says people who have nowhere else to go often end up in the library, but that can leave staff vulnerable.
That if something is not fixed meaningfully, someone is going to get killed in a Saskatchewan library as a result of workplace violence. It is routine for our library worker members to get punched, kicked, and shoved, spit on, sworn at.
The union is calling for de-escalation and trauma-informed training for library staff. It also wants violent offenders to be banned from specific libraries. The coroner's inquest into the death of Jeremy Sabarin has concluded with a jury ruling the 40-year-old man died by suicide. Alexander Kwan has more from Moose Jaw.
RCMP searched Jeremy Sabarin several times after arresting him, but never with a metal detecting wand. And Moose Jaw police didn't check him at all, violating a department policy. That meant no one found the small concealed gun Sabarin had on him. He would later shoot himself with that concealed weapon. The jury recommendations are meant to stop that from happening again. They include the two police agencies having new members familiarize themselves with policies and procedures around searches, and annual testing on physical and metal detecting wand searches. Coroner Blaine Bevan made his own proposal that the jury's recommendations apply to all police forces in Saskatchewan. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Moose Jaw.
The trial of a Kerry Vale man charged with abduction is winding down. A Regina court heard closing arguments today. Michael Gordon Jackson allegedly failed to return his 7-year-old daughter to the care of her mother in 2021. Laura Sharpaletti has been reporting on the trial, and she joins me now. Laura, what is at the heart of what the jury needs to deliberate?
Well, Sam, Michael Gordon Jackson has represented himself during the past 2 weeks. He's pleaded not guilty to abduction in a contravention of custody order. Now, that means the jury has to determine beyond a reasonable doubt that Jackson intended to deprive his ex-wife of the possession of their daughter. So here's what we know. Last week, the mom, who had primary custody, testified that in November 2021, Jackson failed to return their daughter after a long weekend visit. Over the course of the trial, we heard from multiple witnesses and even Jackson himself. They said Jackson didn't return her because he did not want her to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Jackson testified that he believed it would harm her. So today, during final arguments, Jackson told the jury that witness testimonies and evidence have proven he never intended to keep his daughter from her mother. He said his only intention was to stop her from getting vaccinated. Now, Sam, I will mention that some witnesses testified that Jackson had mentioned prior to taking his daughter that he believed he was the better parent than the mother and that the girl would be better off with him.
So what did we hear during the Crown's final arguments?
Well, Crown Prosecutor Zoe Kim Zagalar argued that under the custody agreement, Jackson did not have medical decision-making power, but he was expected to communicate his thoughts on medical matters with his daughter's mom. The Crown says there's no doubt he made his concerns about the COVID-19 vaccine clear, but the girl's mom had the ultimate decision-making power. So after she told Jackson that she planned to get their daughter vaccinated, the Crown argues he decided to take the law into his own hands. She alleges that Jackson was supposed to return his daughter to the mother, in November 2021. But he kept the girl until late February of 2022, and that's when he was arrested in Vernon, British Columbia. So according to the Crown, Jackson's goal of keeping his daughter unvaccinated meant that he purposely kept the girl away from her mother. Kim Zagalar also read some of Jackson's own words from that period to the jury. Quoting Jackson as saying, "Never seeing her mother again would be a benefit, not a loss."
Finally, Laura, if Jackson is found guilty, what kind of sentence would he be facing?
Well, the Crown prosecutor tells me that the sentence range is very broad. It could be anywhere from conditional sentences to up to 7 years in prison.
Thanks, Laura. Laura Sharpaletti is a reporter with CBC Saskatchewan. The jury is expected to begin deliberations for the Michael Gordon Jackson trial tomorrow at Regina's Court of King's Bench. Well, the worst of it is over, but more snow did fall in Saskatoon and across the province today, to the point that you really can't ignore it in some areas. Yes, that means clearing it away. It did have an impact on highways too. Ethan will have more on the messy weather and the forecast when we come back after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you were getting excited for gardening season, the snow might have you frowning, but don't give up. You can absolutely keep your outdoor green thumb going.
I'm seeing minus temperatures going down as cold as -7, -10. So anything that is greenhouse grown right now, it is too cold to plant it out into your yard. So you'll want to keep that indoors nice and warm till usually about the May long weekend. But anything that has been grown outside that maybe has come up and you're wanting to move it somewhere else in the yard and it's already been acclimatized, those things you can plant. If we have snow, you know what, if you maybe have some fertilizer that you need to put about trees, like some people have some big acreages or acreage trees, and it's really hard to get out there and put fertilizer stakes in each tree. So maybe take a little bit of the groundskeeper fertilizer, which is a lawn fertilizer made here in Saskatchewan, and you can sprinkle that on the new snow, and then when it melts, it will take that fertilizer down into those trees. So again, like using some of these things that are happening in the weather to our benefit. Right now is also, I hear a little bit of rain pitter-pattering on the roof right now, and if you can dig into the ground, it's a perfect time to move some of your plants. So those plants haven't come out of dormancy yet, like your perennials and some of your trees. If you're wanting to move them, this cold weather is actually good for them because it keeps them dormant longer, so you have a more chance to move them too. It's really early for us to be putting our bedding plants outside and those types of things. You definitely can harden them off, and by hardening your plants off, I mean putting them out during the day, bringing them in at night, and what you want to see is your temperatures being about 5 degrees plus to be able to do that. So sometimes we have some colder nights where we're seeing those minus temperatures, maybe some snow overnight, but then we're having a warmer day. Get those plants outside, and that will keep them short and free of stretching as well too. So a lot of our seedlings indoors, you'll start to see the nodes, which is the space between the leaves, stretching. And by keeping them cool during the day, that's how you can eliminate that stretching as well.
Now, when it comes to lawn, is there a debate on whether to, when to rake and if to rake in terms of, ladybugs and all that ecosystem? What's your advice?
Well, my advice is you usually want to wait till the trees start budding. That is the time when you're ready to rake and everything like that, because then those bugs can go and inhabit other places. As soon as you see those buds starting to come on your trees and shrubs, then those sort of bugs come and the ladybugs come out of the ground. They start doing their work on the aphids and eating up all those bugs, the bad bugs that we don't want. And so it's important. Don't do that raking too soon. A lot of us get a little bit antsy. We want to get our yards looking perfect, but it is still a little bit early for that. We want to start seeing the buds coming out on our trees before we do that.
The weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. Customer Appreciation Month is on now.
Our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. Buds on the trees, we can only hope.
Yeah, feels like a long ways away from now, but a few weeks, things will be looking better, but things still looking a bit snowy right now. We have a look out of our Saskatoon sky cam there, and yeah, you can still see the snow falling in the Bridge City, and lots of it on the ground at this hour. And if we take a look at our satellite radar shot here, you can see that it's around Saskatoon and even around Regina still, where we have kind of still those areas of snow moving through. And it's fairly light snow now at this point, especially kind of the further south you go in the province, but still very windy no matter where you are. Gusts over 60 today. We're still seeing that even right now. That likely to continue, especially into southern Saskatchewan. And yes, who would have thought we'd still be talking about wind chill at this time of year? You factor in that wind and we're feeling like between -10 and -15 in a lot of locations. In fact, for Regina and Saskatoon, this was the first day since March 30th that we did not get above the freezing mark for a daytime high. And in Regina, this was actually the second coldest April 18th that we had on record. Today we hit -3.5. The record for the coldest daytime high for this day, 1928, sitting at -6. And we, of course, have had a very dry spell in Regina as well. We have had no moisture reported for 16 days, first 16 days of April. The longest stretch, though, you have to go back to 1887, which was 28 days, basically the entire month of April. But, of course, that came to an end in Regina when we saw that snow starting these last couple of days here. That going to begin tapering off through the night, and as we get into tomorrow morning, already some clearing skies in far northern Saskatchewan, and as that area of high pressure moves southwards, so too does that clearing. You can see by the mid-afternoon hours, it's just southern Saskatchewan where we are left with cloud cover, and then by Saturday, many of us expecting just a nice, clear, sunny day. The next time that we have some cloud and some showers moving in possibly is on Sunday into western sections of the province. Until then, maybe another centimeter or two in southern Saskatchewan, maybe 2 to 4 in areas in kind of southwestern and east central Saskatchewan, but not all that much more. Winds, though, still going to be continuing to gust through the night and into tomorrow, particularly in that southeast area and around Regina is where we're going to see those still 50 to 60 at times tomorrow. And even on Saturday, high pressure calming the winds down for many of us, but still a little bit breezy in the southeast corner of the province. So the 7-day forecast showing that we'll get that clearing in Regina by later afternoon tomorrow. Still breezy with a chance of some morning flurries, then sunshine and warming temperatures for the weekend. Some cloud cover with that potential system moving in on Monday. And then the clouds clear out and we get near 20 degrees by this time next week. Saskatoon looking at some breezy conditions tomorrow, but I think you'll be clearing out through the morning hours before, again, you see that sunshine. It's going to be a nice weekend, I think, before we see some double-digit temperatures heading into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So, Sam, if you were expecting a slow melt with this snow, doesn't look like you're going to get it.
Hey, at least it's a gradual warm-up and, like, not, bam, 20 degrees.
Yeah, we have a few days there.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
The city of Kamloops has installed artwork to honor Royal Canadian Air Force Captain Jennifer Casey, nearly 4 years after she died in a crash. Casey and her crew were on Operation Inspiration, a cross-Canada flyby mission to recognize everyone doing their part during the pandemic. The monument is near the airport and features a plane made up of a mosaic of maple leaves and branches. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. An effort to fight antibiotic resistance in Sri Lanka can trace its roots to Saskatchewan. Those roots are a partnership between two researchers bridging the two continents. Sam Sampson has the story.
This University of Saskatchewan lab was where a friendship and now an international project all started.
Literally right here. This is where we sat together.
It's where Joe Rubin met his first graduate student, Roshan Madalagama. Now, from across the globe, the two are tackling antimicrobial resistance, or AMR. That's the resistance to antibiotics that makes medical treatments harder and riskier. Only this time, Madalagama is taking the lead.
Dr. Madalagama has gone on to do really amazing things. He's been a really, I think, inspirational person in his country.
After going home to Sri Lanka 6 years ago, Madalagama has helped the World Health Organization and Sri Lanka's government come up with plans to address AMR. The WHO deems it a major global threat, and rates are especially high in Sri Lanka.
Our livestock industry may contribute significant contribution to the antimicrobial resistance in the country. But we try to minimize this risk.
The worry is vets won't be able to treat infections in livestock, which many families depend on, and then that resistance could transfer to humans everywhere.
All the world is like a one village now, global village.
That means grassroots work, led by Madalagama and his team, with Ruben pitching in from home and on the odd trip. They're helping rural vets detect issues faster and bring more information to researchers across Sri Lanka. Their first goal, creating a lab manual, was just published as open data. This fall, 2 technicians will visit Ruben in Saskatoon to get even more training. A trip Madalagama knows will affect his colleagues forever.
I also always believe that's my second home in Canada. So, as a mentor, he's one of the greatest person I ever met in my life. There's no doubt on that.
An international relationship sparked in Saskatchewan that could fight a global health threat. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Regina.
The Arizona Coyotes are officially heading to Utah. The NHL Board of Governors voted unanimously to approve the $1.2 billion sale to Utah Jazz owners Ryan and Ashley Smith. It clears the way for the franchise to move to Salt Lake City next season. The sale ends the Coyotes' 28-year run in Arizona. The agreement includes a provision for Arizona to get an expansion team if a new arena is built in the next 5 years. Not cold enough here to skate outside, though. Not quite in outdoor hockey territory.
No, but temperatures going to be a little on the cool side tonight. -5 is our wake-up weather in Regina. Some lingering flurries and still breezy tomorrow. We can expect that pretty much throughout the day. That includes by the noon hour. Flurries should be done, though. We're looking at a temperature of around -2, maybe another day below the freezing mark in Regina. We'll get some clearing a little bit later into the afternoon, though. Saskatoon will start on a cloudy note. Snow should be done for you by tomorrow morning, and then, yes, the sun returns to the Bridge City, mix of sun and cloud by the noon hour. And for Catherine, who was out sweeping her front step this morning, she noticed this robin who came sitting down as soon as she opened the door. Sam, she says she suspects he was just trying to get a little bit warm from all this cold weather and snow.
I mean, all of us?
Yeah.
All of us.
Relatable, honestly.
Relatable.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And before we go, from fast fashion to everyday garbage, everyone is looking for a way to recycle. The Style Academy in Regina is using all kinds of material to come up with fashion designs for an upcoming fashion show. The designers are using everything from dad's old clothing, playing cards, and even old chip bags. They all have come up with unique designs that will walk the runway tomorrow night. It's for the Recycled Fashion fundraiser to help raise money for their team and one of their recent alumni who's representing Saskatchewan at the National Skills Competition.
Our recycled fashion is kind of upcycling old clothing to make new clothing. And I think that's a really special thing because making older pieces into new ones can kind of tie in memories, like the old denim that Dad wore on a camping trip now is something that's going to be walking down a runway.
Not necessarily reused, like it's just one-time use. You eat the chips, you throw out the bag. So we wanted to challenge ourselves with an item that you might not see anyone wearing around, I guess.
If you want to check out all of their creative designs, the Recycled Fashion Show is tomorrow night at the Style Academy in Regina. And that is it for us tonight. For News Anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/Sask. You can subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel or download the CBC News app on your phone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.